Hello and welcome back to what I sincerely hope is the last video rebuilding the M135. As you can see, the turbo is removed from the engine and I've received the turbo back fully reconditioned. It ended up taking 9 days instead of 2, but this is what happens. As you can see, fully new car, and this is the old car. There was actually so much movement that the compressor wheel had been touching the inside of the turbo housing. So I'm going to try my very hardest to get the car back together in this one video. I've left the oil feed pipe soaking overnight, so they're nice and clean. So just to get everything refitted and later on see if it all starts. So before refitting the oil feed pipe, which sits like this, I'm going to pour some oil directly into the top of the turbo. This is to make sure that the bearings have lubrication immediately when the car is started for the first time. Although I won't be starting the car straight away, I'll be unplugging the coils and turning it over to make sure that everything gets lubricated prior to starting the car for the first time. This isn't actually the oil that it says on the container. It's 5W30 C3 rated oil that I'm going to be using for the first 500 and 1000 miles of the running in. I really could do with an oil can. That took a lot less than I thought it would, so I'll need to clean that off before starting the car, otherwise we'll get a lot of oil burning off when the exhaust heats up. Now to replace the oil return, which I've no doubt will be, I know there's no oil in there, so I don't know if it's leaked out. I'll stick a little bit of oil in there as well. And finally the coolant pipes on here, because the turbo is both oil cooled and water cooled.
wouldn't recommend doing everything 100% on your own. However, I did get very, very close to being able to manage to do this all by myself. It was just the angle of the engine when refitting that was causing issues. So what I had to do was go under the car and push the gearbox up while someone dropped the engine hoist to allow the engine to slip in at the right angle. Plus, getting the engine mounts back in, I found has to be done after the engine is already somewhere near the position, as they catch on the subframe. After refitting the brake and clutch fluid pipes, I'm just loosening the bleed nipple on the slave cylinder in the hope that it would gravity bleed. However, I ended up having to pressure bleed the system in order to get the clutch pedal back. Refitting the brand new auxiliary belt. So this is something I really wish I'd dealt with while I had all the spare time waiting for the engine to be rebuilt. The head of one of the aircon hose bolts snapped off completely, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get a purchase on it and get it removed. So I ended up having to cut it off with an angle grinder and drill it out,
threaded
and fit a thread cert
drilled
in
the
order
hole
to
out to
attach the pipe
6
again.
mil and used a tap.
So these are the sort of things that you don't really think about
to fit this
when having to
thread
do a job on a car. If every bolt and nut comes out and goes back in without any issues, most jobs on a car are very, very easy. But it's doing the repairs or removing stubborn nuts and bolts that causes all the issues. So that's the new thread cert inserted.
Just greasing the O-rings for the coolant hoses. And same on the intercooler pipes, boost pipes. It does eventually go down, so what I'll do is, while I'm refitting the radiator, I'll just keep topping it up and just get as much in this way as possible. And then I know that I've got 4 litres in this bottle and 4 litres in another bottle. The capacity is normally about 7 litres, but after a rebuild, apparently it can take up to 8 litres. So I know that I've got enough oil if it does take the full amount. Does kind of look to be moving a little bit quicker now. But we'll see. I'll get the radiator back on anyway. Bit of a squeeze down the left hand side, but I just need to get the power for the fans back on, the connection to the thermostat, and both the boost hoses at the bottom. I'm going to stick some coolant in, and hopefully the air will move itself out of the system while I'm refitting the exhaust. I'm not sure exactly what the capacity is. I've been given 7 litres. So it must be somewhere near 7 litres.
So I added approximately 5 litres and topped up the rest with water.
Now that I'm happy that I've put around 3.5 litres of oil through the filter housing, I'm going to refit the new filter, new O-rings. Right, everything important is reconnected and refitted to the car. I do have a problem that I am going to have to address later, which is the coolant feed or return to the turbo. Unfortunately, I've got a bit of a leak, so I don't know. I had some trouble with the original O-rings and I had to replace them. It was very difficult to get a good fit, so may have to get some genuine parts and see if that does the trick. But the exhaust is fully refitted. All I need to do is reconnect the battery. So I'll do that. Very, very nervous. This is the first time the battery has been connected in 5 months. Here we go. No bangs or fizzing as of yet. So going exactly by what PMP have advised me to do, I topped up the oil through the oil filter housing. I've got all of the coils disconnected currently, because what I'm going to do is, now that I've reconnected the battery, I'm going to turn over the engine a little bit, which will activate the oil pump and obviously push all the oil round everywhere that it needs to be before actually running the car for the first time. I have no idea what that noise is. Let's see if the battery's still got charge. So turning over the engine for the first time ever. I think the battery's flat, so I'm going to charge the battery. Right, let's try again. Now the battery's had an hour to charge. Well, steering lock disengaged, so has enough power for that. So I'm just going to try turning it over. Right, so it looks like I have a bad battery. So I'll stick some jump leads from another battery and try again. Right, let's try again. So it looks like the battery's completely knackered. So I'd really like to try and get away without replacing the battery, as it is a Yuasa, which means it's not the original battery, and Yuasas are decent batteries, so I'm hoping that this repair charger will manage to bring the battery back to life. I've had it on for a couple of hours, so I'm going to see if it's done the job, if it's done anything so far. Yuasa battery bench charged overnight. Still got all the coils disconnected, so I'm just trying to turn over the engine. I appear to have the fuel pump running non-stop. So now it's not allowing me to try and start it.
Now I suspected a faulty ground, and I was unable to communicate with the DME for the majority of the time, but the one time that I got communication, I pulled a code for the Valvetronic. The other codes are relevant to connectors being unplugged. So assuming I had a faulty ground, I attached the jump lead between the chassis and the ECU, and this is what happened. This did turn out to be a complete fluke, but we'll go into that after I sort out the coolant hoses. So I'll show you the new coolant hoses that I purchased.
I'm changing these coolant feed hoses to the turbo, and as you can see, it looks like the larger pipe may have been revised. So I've took the rubber hose off, still need to get that out of the block, but this metal area is completely different. And I'm wondering if this is because it's so difficult to remove and refit them. So I had originally fit them with the engine out of the car, but had a leak on the top hose, so I've had to remove them and they won't go back in. So what I had to do was I removed the cat in order to remove the end of this large coolant hose here. Which has allowed me enough room to remove the hoses from the core of the turbo.
At this point I got rather frustrated and put the car outside for a few weeks while I refound my motivation, and this is what the car was doing. Notice no engine light when the ignition is switched on. Until now. However, I still couldn't communicate with the ECU. So where I thought that hitting the ECU was doing the trick, it was actually pulling the wires out, as you'll hear. of the big struggle of having to do everything on your own, when I finally got someone to start the car, or try starting the car for me, I noticed a sparking at the back of the engine, and this is the guilty earth leak going to the back of the block.
Can't really hear it.
So there were two procedures on the diagnostic machine regarding the Valvetronic. This was actually the first one, which was the Valvetronic learning the start and end positions. And then the second one, which I've already shown, was the Valvetronic cycling through the positions while the engine was idling. If you made it this far, then finally I'm going to leave you with an unedited cold start of the car. This was after the MOT, which, as the job had taken so long, had expired, unfortunately. And then I had the car professionally cleaned, not detailed yet, just professionally cleaned. If you are looking to attempt this job and you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section or find me on Twitter. There will be a full service video posted soon after, and I really hope that this video has helped. Thanks for watching.